Hello. I want to talk today about COVID-19. There seems to be a second wave hitting us that the bureaucrats and mainstream media have been calling for weeks. The mainstream media, in my opinion, loves COVID-19 generally because it means more people are watching the news. It's slow news days, people don't watch the news. COVID-19, people are dying, people watch the news. So I think they love COVID-19 for the most part. And politicians love it too. This is assuming these people don't have people they know dying of it, because they have complete power. They can tell people where to go, where not to go, what businesses can stay open, cannot, whether you have to wear a mask, whether you cannot, how far you got to stand apart. They have almost total power over you. And of course, they're throwing away the Constitution and the Canadian Charter of Rights because the U.S. Constitution and Canadian Charter of Rights, the two things about freedom of religion and freedom of being able to peacefully assemble. Both of those are out the window. Of course, you're allowed. You're not allowed to peacefully assemble unless you're part of the Black Lives movement. That then you can peacefully assemble like crazy. They don't seem to care that those people are infecting each other and they could supposedly die. That's okay. But if you peacefully assemble because of religion or something else, nope, not good enough. But anyway, I'm going to post three links. One is to the COVID-19 pandemic planning page for the CDC, and that shows, if you go down to the table 1 under scenario 5, entitled the current best estimate, they give the infection fatality rate of symptomatic cases at 0.0065, or in this case 0.65%. And then you add on to that, right below that, there's percent of infections that are asymptomatic, and that's 40%. So you take 40% off of that number. Because obviously people who are asymptomatic aren't going to die of it. So you take 40% off 0.65%, and you're left with roughly 0.4%. So that's roughly, as of now, that's the rough guesstimate of the CDC for the death rate from COVID-19. 0.4%. Now that's higher than the flu, which is 0.1 plus percent, but it's a whole lot lower than people are saying COVID-19 death rate is, like 3%, 2%, 5%, 9%. It's nowhere near that. SARS, I believe, was 10 or 12%, and KERS, I believe, is it KERS? Or is it something else? KERS, I think I'm thinking of something else. But another infectious disease from the Middle East, I believe, was roughly 30% was the death rate. So this is, it's to me, basically a 0.4% death rate. That's basically a bad flu. So I think that should be kept in mind. Two, they're also putting a link to the description of the New York State Department of Health fatalities page. And that lists two things, one at the bottom, the chart at the bottom of the page, and one right above it on the right-hand side. Basically, the bottom one shows that 90% of all fatalities from COVID-19 had at least one comorbidity. In other words, they had one serious health issue. At least. It says at least one. So 90%. So that means if you died of this thing, almost certainly you had at least one serious health issue. And then the percentage of deaths, the fatalities by age group, it's doing it in my mind quickly, just visually: 51, 61, 71, 84, 85, over 85.2% of them were over of the people who died in New York State from COVID-19 officially were over 60. And almost 40%, 39.7, were over 80. And that's a total of 24,979 as of July 11th in 2020. Of those 24,979, 15 have died who are under 19. So 1.7% of all deaths from COVID-19 are under 40. 5.2% of all deaths from COVID-19 are under 50. So this is a disease that almost exclusively affects people who are sick, very weak, or very sick, and or very old. And lastly, the Canadian page, which is called the Epidemiological Summary COVID-19 Cases as of July 12th, 2020. And you go down to figure 4 and you look for deceased. You change it. You have 3 things to look at. You can look at hospitalized, admitted to ICU, and deceased. You change it to deceased, and it'll show you that in Canada, this is the Canadian government, and this is the statistics for all detailed case report forms have been received. So these are people who have died who had detailed case reports. So they in other words, they know what was going on. This is of 8,693 deaths. Of those deaths in Canada, this is for all of Canada. Do it again quick in my head. 89, I'm adding up the numbers here. 96.9% of those. 96.9, is that right? 96.9% are over 60. 96.9. And under 60, 2.8, 3.1. Under 40, less than 1% in Canada of those with detailed health reports have died of COVID-19. If you're under 40, under 50 in Canada and you get this thing, the chances of you dying are astronomically bad or good, in that you're obviously going to make it, especially if you're healthy, reasonably healthy. So again, this is something that if you are healthy, this again, as I've said before, and it hasn't changed. Yes, there are more COVID-19 cases being shown because there's a lot more testing now. So obviously there's going to be more, but that's a good thing because the more cases there are, the faster we get to herd immunity, which is like 50 or 60%. And the faster we get to that, the faster people who are vulnerable to this thing can feel safer, because once we get to herd immunity, the chances of them getting it go down greatly. So that's not a bad thing. And also too, just because there's more cases, the death rate's not changing, and who's dying isn't changing. It's old people and or people with serious health issues. If you are not old and or you do not have serious health issues, the odds are extremely good, like about the chances of dying of a lightning strike, literally, that you will die of COVID-19. So it's the same thing. The old should be, and the weak should be looked after and helped by the government. Everybody else should be allowed to go back to their normal lives. So anyway, just wanted to say that. Sorry it took so long. Have a nice day and thanks for listening. Nope, I'll reverse that. Thanks for listening and have a nice day.